Hey Jackals, I'm Simon and lately I've been dabbling into 3D. I've done a donut in Blender and I wanted to see if I can make it in DaVinci Resolve. Can I make it? I can. Kinda. And I'll show you how. Now let's get digital. As you can see, this donut doesn't come even close to the one that I made in Blender, but if you want to make it quickly, you can do it. So we need the fusion composition, so make it. I'll just keep it at 5 seconds and put it onto the timeline and then go into the fusion composition. Now because this is 3D, we have to do this with shapes and we have them right here, shape 3D. So we'll take that one and we'll use render node so that we can see the actual shape, connect it, and then we can connect this to the media out. So at the moment we just see a square, and that's because the shape 3D is a plane. We'll change this to a torus, which is basically a donut shape, nothing changed. So let's select it, display it on the left side. With Control and mouse wheel, we can zoom out, and with Alt, we can now see the donut shape. We still don't see anything different on the right side, and that's because we need the camera. So let's add one. So now we still don't see anything different, and that's because the camera sees this part of the donut. So we have to take the camera and position it back. So now we have the shape of the donut from this side. Currently I'll just leave it like this. Now if we zoom in, you can see the edges. So we can use the subdivisions. In my case this was 30, but you can use maybe something like, so this would be more visible from the top. So how smooth do we want it? Maybe I'll just set it to 60. Now for the time being, I can set this a color, just so we can call it a donut. And we have a flat color because you don't have any lighting. So let me just add a light. So we still don't see any difference, and that's because we have to go to the render node and enable lighting. Now we see black on this side and a little bit of a donut on the left side. So we just need to position the light how we want. So maybe I'll have one light here and I'll put the second one at the bottom just so we can see the whole shape. And drop the intensity, maybe something like that. So now we have the base shape of the donut, and what do we need to call this a donut? Some icing. So I'll copy this shape, connect it here. Now currently this is the same as this one. So I'll just change the color to a pink one. But now we want the icing to only be halfway. To achieve that, we have a latitude and an angle. In this case we need latitude, but as you can see it only comes to the half point. If I display this on the left side, we'll clearly be able to see how this behaves. So as you will see, the latitude starts from the outside position and goes to the inside. And the angle doesn't fix this, the angle will go around the object. So the best case scenario that we can have is the icing starting from the middle to the inside, maybe something like that, 180. Currently, if you want to animate this and move the icing and the donut together, as you'll notice, the shapes are not linked. Now you could animate each shape individually, or maybe just make an instance of this object, and then the instance everything else that we don't need, like the color and the latitude. But what you can also do to get around this, and so that we can add other objects, like maybe sprinkles, is to simply disconnect these two nodes, merge them together with another 3D node, and then we would also add other nodes to this, like the sprinkles or maybe something else, and connect this to here. Now currently we still can't do anything, so we use a transform 3D node. And now when we simply move this one into rotation, as you can see, it will rotate like we want it to. So maybe now I'll set the X value to 50 degrees, maybe 60, and we can animate the Y position. So if we start somewhere like -40 and go to the beginning, So frame 0, keyframe this. Let's see, frame 110. So I'll just make this a full value, so let's go with 40. And at the end, last frame, this will make 2 circles, 2 whole spins. So this is 1. And this would be 2, but because the animation ends, and if we want to continue from the original position, we have to do 720 minus the original value, which is 40. So this would be 680. So now this should loop when you play it. The only difference is that this will go fast and then it will start again slow from the beginning. To make the animation smooth, go to the spline editor. I have this option enabled, so it shows only the selected tools. So in this case it's the transform. I've animated the Y rotation, so I only have this option here. I'll click zoom to fit. Now I'll select this point and press S so it smooths it out. And I'll make this part of the animation an S shape so that it spins fast. Maybe something like that. That looks good. I'll use another shape 3D node. This one will be a sphere. And I'll connect it to this merge. Now currently this sphere is too big, but we did get a nice looking object. So let's make this radius smaller so that it will be like a sprinkle. I'll go to the beginning, and now in the transform I can position it to roughly where it should be. So maybe something like that. What you can do now is make a couple of copies and just spread the spheres around, but I won't be doing that. I'll be using the duplicate node. So duplicate 3D. But in this case, we may have a little bit of issue with positioning. So let's say how many copies. Let's go with 10 copies. We don't see any difference. With the next offset, we do see something. And let me just move the donut like here, so we have a straight on perspective. Then we'll go into jitter and make all of the changes here. Now if you use the Z and Y axis, as you can see, this can make the spheres disappear like this one. And this all depends on the original position of the sphere that you used. Now it's a little bit hard to work from the top. So if I display this node on the left, we'll get a much better idea of what is happening. So currently we have 2 spheres and the third one that is barely touching. So maybe something like this. It's not the best way of doing this. So now I'll simply change the color of the sprinkles. So as you can see, now we have the animation. What we can do is add one light behind the donut. So instead of just using a spotlight, let's see what else we can use. So we can use point light, and we can use ambient light and directional light. So I'll just use a point light. So now it's best to display this node so that we can see the camera and the light that you want to move. So I'll position the light behind the donut, opposite of the camera. You can also disable all of the other lights so that you can see what each individual light is doing. So in this case, maybe we want to have a rim behind the donut. So I'll have to move it here. Maybe something like that. So let's see the options. We can adjust the intensity. I think that's good enough. Now let's take a look at the other two lights. I think this one's good. Maybe lower the intensity just a little bit. And the main light, I think it's good, but we could use some more lights here. Something like that. Awesome. So now we have the whole scene set up. We can render it like this, but we can make some adjustments. The first one is to make a background. So after this point we have a 2D scene, so we can simply add a background. Switch the inputs, and we have this. We could also use fast noise. Let's go with the gradient. We can play around with the settings in the fast noise. What we can do is maybe set the seed and seed rate so that the animation moves slightly. And we can also play with these two options to get a different result. Now the biggest difference that we can make with the donut is to change the actual shape and the color. Now it's just a solid color. Now before this shape 3D, we'll be using 2D and we don't have to change anything to use it. So I'll be using two backgrounds, a fast noise, and we need the merge node to combine everything together. So the first background will be a gradient, top to bottom. Now we could use the points to grab them, but we can simply type in the values. So in this case 0.5 and 0, and 0.1, 0.5 and 1. So we have the gradient going down the middle, and I'll simply copy this background to have the same points. Or actually I'll do that later. First let's decide on the colors. First we'll use the transparency. In this case the color has to be black and the alpha set to 0. And then we'll use a white point. So like that. And we'll use 3 mirror points here. In this case it will be black. With the transparency again. Add a white point. And this will be, the last one will be black again. So we have this kind of pattern. So this will be see-through. Now I'll simply copy this one. And I'll use it as a mask. Currently we don't have anything, and that's because this one doesn't have any color. So let's change that. So now we'll simply specify the donut color. Let's see, maybe something like that. I'll simply copy the value. But now where we have the whites, this will be black. So what these two backgrounds will do is make the color of the donut in the middle this color. Currently we can't see it because this is not connected. So now we can connect this to the shape 3D, and we do see it slightly, but that's because we have a color of the donut specified here. So we can set this to white, and then we'll do the color of the donut in the fast noise. So go to the color and set the color. So this will be the light color, the darker color, like that, but we also have to set the alpha here 1. Now this looks a little bit more like a donut, but we can go to the noise options and set the details, contrast, brightness, scale. This is the important one. So maybe something like that. You can always change the color if you don't like it. Now because we use the fast noise, we have an issue with the texture, as you can see. One way to fix this is to use a mirror node. I'll simply connect it here. So you got rid of that issue. If you need to, you can also enable the second one and rotate it by 90 degrees. So now you should not have any issues with the texture. What we can add now is a blend node. Let's add blend node. Now currently I don't see any difference, but why I've used this node? Because it has a bump input. As you can see, bump map. So I will use bump map, which will use the fast noise as an input. This node looks like this. So now let's put it into the blend node. So in the blend node, you do need to change the color. So that's a tasty looking donut. But now in the bump map, we can change the height and we'll get some texture to it. So now it's totally flat. But if you adjust the height scale, you will get some texture to it. And depending on the texture that you use in the fast noise, this can look totally crazy. So now we have a golden looking donut. It may look a little bit off, so you may need to adjust the backgrounds here for the mask. So not much of a difference, but that's okay because we have the icing going over the halfway point. So now let's enable the icing, and we have some issues. What can you do about that? Well, simply go to this shape node and you can increase the radius by a tiny bit. So this fixes the outside, but the inside gets messed up. So you'll need to increase the inside also by a tiny bit. Maybe something like that. Now if you want, you can also use the fast noise node, the bump map and the blend for the icing. So I'll simply copy these nodes And let's see what we got. We obviously need to change the color here, so let's change the color to something like what we had. And also the fast noise node, we need to change the color here, so something like that. But as you can see, we have an issue again here, so I'll just copy the mirror, and now the mirror node will go into the bump and into the bleed node. Now one thing that you can do, if I zoom in, as you can see the ball is visible a little bit, and you can basically adjust this to alpha values to get a little bit of transparency going on, so maybe something like that. And that's basically it. Now you can use other nodes to make this even nicer looking, like maybe this one, Cook Tolerance, and I'll use it on the Icing because it's on the top and it's most visible. You have to use it before the Shape 3D node. So this is just another way to mess with the lighting. As you can see, Cook Tolerance also has the bump map input, so you can use it instead of the bleed node, or use different kind of nodes and switch them around. In my case, Cook Tolerance was crashing the timeline when it was rendering, so I'll just remove it. And if you want to make a quick donut, I maybe wouldn't even use all of these extra nodes that I've used and just use the basic shapes. So in that case, the end result will be something like this. So this is the end result that we got. I didn't use any particles to put behind the donut that are falling down. If you want to, you can do that. It's very simple, but it may be, again, intensive on the PC. Now, what was the point of this video? The point was to show you that you can use DaVinci Resolve to make complex looking 3D shapes, but the result won't be as good if you use something like Blender. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more DaVinci Resolve and video editing content, and hit the bell notification icon so you know when my next video comes out. I'm Simon, and until next time, jackals, keep it digital.